after reading the 28 pages, and the pages speak for themselves, I think that members of Congress and American citizens everywhere will be better informed in terms of our national security posture and the threats that are out there.
A society of laws, those enacted to protect Americans. Laws that are at the moment under attack for not taking into account the social needs and political correctness of some. The focus is shifting to Washington, D.C., where a new Congress gathers to deal with the ills and needs of America, and the specter of what happened in Paris this week now becomes part of the national security issue. This and a whole lot more on the plate. Let us go ahead and welcome back to MidPoint, former member of the U.S. House of Representatives in the 16th District of Florida, our political analyst to make sense of what is Washington. Mark Foley joins us once again here in the studio. Good to see you again. Happy New Year.
Ed, thank you very much.
Your initial reaction when you first heard the words from Paris?
Well, very sad, but this has been coming. Remember, 2 weeks ago, Senator Feinstein released the CIA report. There were warnings at the time, if you release this, this is going to unleash the terror groups. Now, I don't blame that alone. These people have been fomenting. When I went to Italy and for the burial of the Pope, I talked to the cardinals. They said the greatest fear in Italy is the rising radical Islamists who are there staging and waiting to attack Christianity. It's playing out now in Paris, and our American citizens forget what happened in 9/11. What was troublesome to me is when we start talking about CIA interrogation, the distance between 9/11, the louder the liberal voices become antagonistic to techniques that may be abhorrent, but they get results. But what happened in Paris is disgusting, and we're going to unfortunately see more of it.
Let's make sure we point out that you're not saying that the CIA report release had anything to do with what happened in Paris.
No.
Before anybody starts to mischaracterize what you said.
Correct. I'm suggesting, though, when you release what I call classified information, it does foment groups that are already poised to attack us. But when they see an opportunity where there's anger in the streets, vis-a-vis New York Police Department, they take that opportunity to disturb our communities. And I sense that it's part and parcel of the anxiety those groups feel towards the United States and our values.
Then how do we start to protect ourselves here in America? You've got businesses that may be under attack now. And again, I'm not trying to raise any great alarms here, but it happened in Paris where in broad daylight a business is attacked and people are slaughtered. It could happen anywhere. Instead of everybody having a gun on their hip at this point and having an armed guard sitting at every door of every business, how do we then start to properly protect ourselves and get help from our lawmakers to do that?
You let agencies do what they're tasked to do. Give the FBI powers. Continue to understand the CIA's role in the world in getting reconnaissance and information. We can't shy away from civil liberties. We should uphold them and treasure them.
But maybe we have to, boy, I know I'm going to get hit for this one. Maybe we have to ding some of them.
We have to ding some of them. We have to prove, in order to get information, you have to be ruthless. When the Church Commission report came out about the CIA 30-some years ago, they suggested all the CIA operatives should be Boy Scouts and have pristine records. The people that go into the field to be operatives and undercover agents are not pristine characters. They've had challenging lives. It gives them the skill set to interrogate and find out information that's helpful to us. So we've got to stop trying to be so politically correct, Ed, that we take away every tool in our arsenal that gives us information that could prevent a Paris attack.
We're talking again, and this is an old sports term, the wussification of America, where quite simply, frankly, we're not willing to go ahead and be a little tougher, and we're also not willing to get our fingers dirty and go after people like this? Is that what it is?
I'd like to talk to the victims' families today in Paris from yesterday's attack and ask them what they would think about waterboarding. I tell you what they'd think. Use whatever measure is necessary to protect our families and our lives. They lost loved ones. Today would not be a day they'd be sitting there, oh, let's be nice to these people. I'm certain as they have those two hopefully holed up in a gas station, they use brutal force to bring them to justice.
Do we need to, at this point, very quickly have people see a lot of these pictures and see a lot of these videos flat out? See the one guy putting the bullet in the cop's brain? Maybe that would help?
I think it helps draw a dramatic illustration of the capabilities of these radical infidels. They have no respect for life, They brutally murdered that police officer who was unarmed. They shot him in the back of the head like a coward. They beheaded our citizens. If that's not enough graphic detail for Americans to wake up, I don't know what else we can do.
All right, stand by, please. Breaking more with Congressman Mark Foley as we spin to other notions from the new Congress when we continue right here. Welcome back to MidPoint, everybody, and once again, welcome back former Florida Congressman, Republican Mark Foley joins us here in the studio. We have talked so much about what's happened in Paris. We're trying to bring it over to national security now, law enforcement. Let me ask you one question here, though, about immigration. How do we, because in Paris and what's going on in Paris and in France and a lot of Europe right now are almost little mini communities, little mini Muslim Islamic communities that are basically allowed to continue to foster. The government does not get involved. They create almost their own section, if you will. They don't integrate into the actual fabric of society there. How do we then, or should we here in America, try to have some control over immigration so that doesn't happen here without becoming a police state?
Open borders do lead to problems. This has been occurring for decades. In fact, this goes back to the Crusades, some of the antithesis of people's attitudes towards Christianity, towards Jews. But what we have to establish is law enforcement. We have to have strong borders. We have to protect who's coming in and what is their intent. And also, once they're here, monitor people. I don't like a nanny state any more than anyone else. I'm more of a libertarian, if you will, politically. But when it comes to Homeland Security, you can't err on the side of caution too much. You always have to do more. You always have to be thorough.
But then you're getting into civil liberties. You're getting into people who will say that you are basically taking away my civil rights. How do you then balance that?
Show them the clip of Paris and say civil liberties come at a cost. To protect them, you have to protect the lives of individuals. If you give everybody carte blanche and let them come to your country and foment and create dissent, create political paralysis, and are afraid to focus on it for somehow being called a racist or some other term, then you will dramatically see the escalation of attacks in streets. Can you imagine that happening in a mall in America? Can you imagine that kind of gunfire? Now, it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't occur by American citizens who have a screw loose who go in and shoot up a building. It's happening, unfortunately. Attacks against police are occurring, and those aren't people from Islamist states. They're not people that are fomenting against the United States. But it's a similar dynamic. They're mad at law enforcement because they think law enforcement takes out its aggression on African Americans. So their attempt to seek justice is to go shoot a few cops while they sit in their car.
Okay, then how do we fix that? Because let's get to law enforcement. And we're opening up a tremendous amount of the Pandora's boxes here right now. But law enforcement has that problem right now. It's what I call arrogance towards cops. Many people just feel as if they can get away with anything against officers these days. But in sense, don't you also say that there are some bad cops out there? We got to weed these people out here in order to create an effective law enforcement that people still respect.
There are bad cops. I said this on this show a couple of weeks ago when you and I did a segment. But that doesn't mean the entire bunch is bad.
Exactly.
You've got to focus again on trying to provide a level of protection for the entire society, take out the bad guys if they are in fact there, respect civil liberties to a degree. My premise is strong enforcement requires strong measures. In the case we talked about, the Garner case, I think that was wrong. I think the cops were wrong there. Many of the other cases we're reviewing and have seen are absolutely on the side of law enforcement. But we shouldn't foment and focus on that one incident. In Paris, same kind of dynamic. Not every adherent of the Muslim faith is going to create a crime
Correct.
against an American. We've got to be very sensitive, not painting with a broad brush. But again, back to the premise of law enforcement, let's respect that. Let's make certain the laws work. But let's not let our guard down because in this age of political correct behavior, we're afraid to do something to a group that may be angling to attack us.
So in all this, about 90 seconds we have left here, with regard to the 114th Congress that now gets to work, what is it that, in your opinion, they must do, they need to do, they have to do in order to better protect this nation, whether it's at the level of law enforcement or at the level of our national security?
I think, you know, we're having a lot of talk about the pipeline, Keystone Pipeline. Gas is at $2.21. Okay, go ahead and pass your bill. Do it quickly. Let the president veto. Put that on the back burner and deal with it when we have a Republican president.
It's not
in
important
2016.
anymore. It's not as important as it used to be.
It's not as important.
Thank you.
The most important thing we have to focus on is the very threat that terror provides this country. Watching Paris, every lawmaker, whether they're on the Ag Committee or on Homeland Security, should be keenly focused on protecting the homeland. Nothing else matters. If you have a disastrous consequence like 9/11 again in the United States, economically, emotionally, spiritually, every kind of index you could use is upended. And so we spend time fighting on whether this member is going to serve on a committee because he may have voted for Boehner or against Boehner. Listen, get with the program, guys. You have a serious, serious responsibility and a serious challenge. Protect the homeland.
15 seconds left. Maybe the easiest thing is to go ahead and staple on everybody's head, eye on the ball.
Eye on the ball. Eye on the target. Protect America.
Do you have confidence that most members of Congress do have their eye on the ball today?
I think they have their eye on trying to get on TV for the wrong reasons. They need to get on TV to talk about how to make their communities safe. That's the #1 job.
I'm going to get you back to talk about that later on. Mark,
Thanks.
always a pleasure
Thanks,
to see
Ed.
you. Thanks so
Good
much
to be
for
with
joining
you.
us again. All right. Break, and we're back with tales of earthquakes, a pipeline that may now be completely useless as a fighting point, and some common sense in the climate change battle. When did you ever hear those words put together? It's right here where we question everything when MidPoint continues.